With the Pixel 8 Pro now being official, the Pixel 7 Pro is now just over a year old. After several feature drops and most notably Android 14, I thought it was the perfect time to review it again as a 1-year-old phone. When it launched in 2022, the Pixel 7 Pro was a very good phone at a fair price. After a couple months, many users started to face some major issues with software bugs, performance, and battery life. I also started to experience some of these, which is why I recently made the switch to the Nothing Phone 2. But now with Android 14, I've switched back to the Pixel 7 Pro to see how it's aged and see if it's worth coming back to the Pixel again full time. So first, what's aged really well is definitely the hardware. It's still a high quality piece of hardware made of Gorilla Glass Victus and aluminum. It's not my favorite looking design and it's a little top heavy, but it feels premium, comfortable to hold, and offers an IP68 rating too. The glass panels are slightly curved on the edges, which I know a lot of you guys don't like, but I never had any issues or ghost touches, and I'm weirdly a fan since it feels nice to run your finger across and do gestures. The visor camera bump might be huge, but it keeps the phone even on a flat surface and gives the Pixel series a really distinctive modern look that I'm glad they're sticking with for the Pixel 8 series. Even with the case on this the whole time, I did get some micro scratches on both the glass panels, the aluminum frame, and the camera bump, but if you're not looking for it, it's honestly not bad at all. Plus, the buttons are still clicky, and this phone overall is in really good condition for being a big slab of glass. The 6.7-inch LTPO OLED display is still awesome. It's still 1440p, but Google always defaults to 1080p out of the box, so that's where I kept it. But it still looks sharper than native 1080p displays, and the colors are really vibrant. The optical fingerprint reader hasn't really improved for me since last time. It's still decent, but it's nowhere near as fast or accurate as an ultrasonic sensor. My only real complaint about the display is that with manual brightness controls, the display doesn't get too bright in the sun. It can get brighter with adaptive brightness, but I personally don't like using that, so this is a personal complaint of mine. The stereo speakers also hold up really well. It can get really loud without much distortion. It's got range, respectable bass, and I have a really good time listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos using the speakers here. There's still a bit of unevenness between the earpiece and the bottom firing grills, but it's not that noticeable, so I don't really see it as a bad thing. One thing I really missed about using the Pixel was the camera, and just like how I remembered it, it's a really great camera. It's a triple camera system that includes a 48 megapixel telephoto lens for a 5x optical zoom. The ultra-wide camera is not that impressive, but from 1x to 5x, you can get some really dynamic shots with this camera system. You're almost always going to get shots that are more than good enough for social media for most people. With excellent low light capabilities and very quick shutter speed, this is a really reliable camera for all kinds of situations. Plus, with Android 14, switching modes and the camera app as a whole is much easier to use, especially for one-handed usability. If we're getting technical and more in-depth versus other OEM phones, this phone does have its issues. Google is known for its post-processing algorithms, and for the most part, it's great. But I still do find some of the photos to look a little too over-processed as the software tries to brighten up shadows and dark spots a little too much, and the contrast is sometimes a bit lacking. Now, because of all this, I also notice more noise than usual in these pictures. I love taking photos of landscapes, cafes, and nightlights with this camera, but still not a big fan when taking photos of people. My hair color also comes off a little grayer than it is. Same goes for the video as it follows a similar post-processing style. I'm perfectly fine with the stabilization and overall quality, but it is quite noisy and there are shadows, and I do find the footage to be a bit over-processed. Compared to iPhones, Xiaomi, and Samsung phones, the 4K video is a little fuzzier and not as clear for short content like TikTok. So yeah, I still slightly prefer the post-processing results from other OEMs, especially Xiaomi, but this camera is still one of the top dogs in the smartphone industry for a camera system, and that 5x optical zoom is so nice to have. At this price, you're not going to find many phones that offer this level of optical zoom. Now let's talk about software experience with Android 14, which added some nifty features and changes. We got the new lock screen customization, which I've been playing with a ton. I wish there were still more options, but it's a good start. The notifications are a little bit better organized. Like I mentioned earlier, the camera app got updated for better one-handed usage, and most importantly, the update promises bug fixes and improvements to battery life and performance. It's still not perfect, but I did run into much less crashes and bugs after updating to Android 14. This phone has always been smooth for day-to-day usage, but I can say that it's been more consistent in terms of frame rate staying stable, which is a really huge part. I'm still salty that themed icons still doesn't apply to all apps, how multitasking is still a pain to do on Pixel UI, and that we still don't get much options to customize the home screen. And even though there is a ton of AI features here like Magic Eraser, Live Transcribe, and Live Translate, because of the lack of options in customization and multitasking, I ultimately prefer third-party OEM skins like One UI, Nothing OS, and ColorOS. but that's just me. But most importantly, Android 14 did solve some of the major thermal and battery issues, which is a huge win. The Pixel 7 Pro comes with the infamous Tensor G2 chipset and 12 gigs of RAM. The Tensor G2 actually always performed well for day-to-day things and social apps, but once you use a camera a little longer than usual, or if you did a bit of multitasking or video editing, it used to heat up pretty often, sometimes to the point of being uncomfortable. It also dropped frames or reduced video recording quality to stay on, but now with Android 14, the thermals haven't been out of control. It still does get warm when updating a bunch of apps at once, or if you do use a camera a lot for 10 minutes or more, but it doesn't get as hot anymore, and it also didn't run into any performance issues. No sudden dropping of frames or typical speeds. It's just been a much more consistent experience, and I think it's back to where it started. It's now a nice experience to use this phone again in terms of the performance side. A lot of credit is due to how Android 14 caches apps in the background. It freezes them better that they use zero CPU time. Android 14 also increases the allowed number of cached apps so that there's less cold app starts, so apps do open faster. Because of all these under the hood changes, the Pixel 7 Pro also got a pretty substantial boost to its battery life. Either the weekend or the weekday, my Pixel used to max out at about 4 to max 5 hours of screen on time. With a huge 5000 mAh battery and not very fast charging speeds, that was pretty disappointing. But after updating to Android 14 and about a week of learning my usage patterns, this phone is now getting me up to 7 hours of screen on time. On average, it's still 5 to 6 hours, but this is a big improvement. Not only is the screen on time improved, the idle battery performance is also much improved. On work days when I don't use my phone too much, I've been ending up with 40 to 50% left by the time I get home around 8 p.m. In the past, I used to end up with 30% or lower, so even though there weren't too many exciting features or changes with Android 14, it's been a low-key game changer for this phone, and I'm actually quite satisfied with the battery life now. Since we are seeing these improvements here, I'm now excited for what Android 14 is going to do for my Galaxy S22 and the Nothing Phone 2. Okay, so putting everything together, even with the Pixel 8 Pro being out now, the Pixel 7 Pro is still very much a flagship Pixel phone. It was suffering from performance and battery issues for a while now, but after Android 14, it's become a much better all-around device that I enjoy using. Even though Android 14 did seem pretty low-key, it's been a game changer for this phone. To be honest, I'm now pretty split between my Nothing Phone 2 and the Pixel 7 Pro. I'm probably still going to stick with the Nothing Phone 2 because I prefer the multitasking features and home screen customizations, but I can now recommend the Pixel 7 Pro again to just about anyone. If you can find a good deal for it, it's still a really great purchase. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on the Pixel 7 Pro and if you might be considering it as your next phone. Definitely more long-term reviews coming to the channel just like this, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.